Chapter 1. The Morphine and the Kettle. The year was 1886. The dust of the American Civil War had settled, but for Dr. John Stith Pemberton, the war was still raging inside his veins. Wounded at the Battle of Columbus, Pemberton had fallen victim to the era's silent epidemic, opium addiction. In his laboratory in Atlanta, he wasn't trying to create a refreshment, he was seeking a brain tonic to cure his nerves. He experimented with the coca leaf and the cola nut. The result was a fragrant, dark liquid that he mixed with carbonated water, a relatively new novelty at the time. When the first glass was served at Jacob's Pharmacy on May 8, 1886, it wasn't a soda, it was medicine. But it was medicine that tasted like the future. Chapter 2. The Man Who Saw a Global Map. Pemberton was a chemist, not a titan. He died just 2 years later, never knowing he had birthed a giant. Enter Asa Candler. If Pemberton gave Coca-Cola its soul, Candler gave it its teeth. Candler was a marketing genius before the term existed. He understood the power of the visual. He flooded the United States with clocks, calendars, and scales bearing the Spencerian script logo. He made sure that if you were walking down a street in Chicago, New York, or a dusty town in Texas, you couldn't escape the name. He gave away thousands of coupons for free glasses, the first sampling campaign in history. He turned a medicinal tonic into a social ritual. Chapter 3. The $1 Mistake. One of the most legendary blunders and eventually strokes of luck in business history occurred in 1999. Two lawyers approached Candler wanting to bottle the drink. At the time, soda was a fountain experience. Candler, thinking bottling was a fad that would never last, sold the bottling rights for the entire United States for a measly $1. He never even collected the dollar. This mistake birthed the bottling system. Because these local entrepreneurs owned the rights, they invested their own money to build plants in every corner of America. Coca-Cola became a local business in every town it entered. By the time Candler realized his error, the contour bottle was born, a shape so distinct that, as the brief stated, you could recognize it even if broken on the ground in the dark. Chapter 4. The War Effort and the Global Footprint. When World War II broke out, Coca-Cola CEO Robert Woodruff made a decree that changed history. Every man in uniform gets a bottle of Coca-Cola for 5 cents, wherever he is and whatever it costs the company. This wasn't just patriotism, it was the ultimate market expansion. Coke followed the GIs to North Africa, Europe, and the Pacific. The company built 64 bottling plants overseas during the war, often right behind the front lines. To the soldiers, Coke was a taste of home. To the rest of the world, Coke became the symbol of democracy and American liberation. When the war ended, the infrastructure stayed. The world was now hooked on the red and white. Chapter 5. The New Coke Disaster and the Resurrection. In 1985, Coca-Cola did the unthinkable. Panicked by Pepsi's Pepsi Challenge, they changed the secret formula. The backlash was a cultural earthquake. Thousands of letters poured in. People were mourning a soda as if it were a deceased relative. This failure actually revealed the brand's greatest strength: emotional ownership. The American public proved that Coca-Cola didn't belong to the company, it belonged to the people. When Coca-Cola Classic returned 79 days later, the brand was stronger than it had ever been. Chapter 6. The Modern Icon. Today, Coca-Cola is more than a beverage. It is a masterclass in adaptation. From the Share a Coke campaign that put our own names on the labels, to its massive shifts towards sustainability and diverse portfolios, the brand remains a mirror of the society it serves. It has survived depressions, 2 world wars, the rise of the internet, and the health revolution. Chapter 7. The Architecture of an Icon, the Birth of the Contour Bottle. By 1915, Coca-Cola had a massive problem. Success had bred an army of clones. On the shelves of American grocers, you could find Coca-Cola, Ma Coca-Cola, and Tocola. The labels looked similar, and in the dim light of an icebox, a consumer couldn't tell the difference. The brand was losing its identity in a sea of imitators. The leadership issued a challenge to glass companies across the USA. Design a bottle so distinct that you can recognize it by feel in the dark, or even if it lies shattered on the floor in the dark. The Root Glass Company in Indiana took inspiration from an unlikely source. While researching the ingredients of the drink, they came across an illustration of a cocoa bean pod. It was curvy, ribbed, and oddly satisfying to hold. Even though Coca-Cola didn't actually contain cocoa, the design stuck. In 1916, the Contour bottle was patented. It wasn't just a container, it was the first time a product's shape became its trademark. It felt premium, it felt cold, it felt America. Chapter 8. The Great Depression and the 5-Cent Miracle. When the stock market crashed in 1929, luxury items vanished. But Coca-Cola did something counterintuitive. Instead of pulling back, they doubled down on the idea of the affordable luxury. For a single nickel, a worker who had lost everything could still feel like a king for 10 minutes. Robert Woodruff, the legendary leader who took over in 1923, insisted that Coca-Cola be within an arm's reach of desire. He pioneered the top-opening metal cooler, making it easier for people to grab a cold one on the go. During the darkest days of the 1930s, Coca-Cola's advertising shifted. They moved away from health claims and started selling happiness. They hired legendary artist Haddon Sundblom to illustrate Santa Claus. Before this, Santa was often depicted as a thin, stern man in green or brown. Coca-Cola painted him as the jolly, plump, red-suited grandfather we know today. Coca-Cola didn't just survive the Depression, it colonized the American imagination. Chapter 9. The Secret of 7X. Deep within the SunTrust Bank vault in Atlanta, and later moved to a high-tech vault at the World of Coca-Cola, lies a piece of paper that is perhaps the most guarded secret in corporate history. It is the formula for merchandise 7X. The mystery of the formula is the greatest marketing tool ever devised. While chemists know that the drink involves oils of orange, lemon, nutmeg, and coriander, the exact proportions remain a mystery. This secrecy created a mythic status. It suggested that Coca-Cola wasn't just a chemical mixture, but a piece of industrial alchemy. It forced competitors to spend millions trying to replicate a taste that was protected not just by law, but by legend. Chapter 10. The Civil Rights Turning Point. The story of Coca-Cola is also inextricably linked to the social fabric of the United States. In the 1960s, Atlanta was the heart of the civil rights movement. When Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, Atlanta's elite were hesitant to honor him. J. Paul Austin, the CEO of Coca-Cola at the time, saw the looming disaster. He knew that if Atlanta shamed its most famous son, the city and the brand would suffer. He summoned the city's business leaders and gave them a blunt ultimatum. It is embarrassing for Coca-Cola to be located in a city that refuses to honor its Nobel Prize winner. We are a global company. We need Atlanta to be a global city. Within hours, the dinner was sold out. Coca-Cola wasn't just selling soda, it was using its massive economic weight to steer the moral compass of the American South. Chapter 11. The Global Village and the Hilltop. In 1971, the world was divided by the Vietnam War and the Cold War. Coca-Cola responded with what is widely considered the greatest commercial of all time, Hilltop. A diverse group of young people from all over the world gathered on a hillside in Italy, singing, "I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. I'd like to buy the world a Coke and keep it company." It was a masterstroke. It positioned a sugary carbonated drink as a catalyst for world peace. It told the American audience that despite the political chaos at home, there was a universal language, and that language was a Coke. The song became a hit record, and the brand became synonymous with the global village. Chapter 12. The 80s, the Cola Wars, and the Michael Jackson Factor. As the 1980s dawned, the soft drink landscape changed from a friendly rivalry into an all-out cultural war. Pepsi, once the scrappy underdog, began a brilliant offensive known as the Pepsi Challenge. Blind taste tests across America were showing a terrifying trend. When people didn't know what they were drinking, they preferred the sweeter taste of Pepsi. In 1984, Pepsi signed Michael Jackson for a record-breaking $5 million.
In 1984, Pepsi signed Michael Jackson for a record-breaking $5 million. The choice of a new generation campaign was born. Suddenly, Coca-Cola looked like your grandfather's drink, safe, old-fashioned, and out of touch. The red and white giant was bleeding market share. The executives in Atlanta were sweating, and for the first time in a century, they did the unthinkable. They panicked. Chapter 13. The New Coke Catastrophe, April 23, 1985. Roberto Guazita, the CEO, and Donald Keogh, the president, decided to play God with the recipe. They developed Project Kansas. After testing 190,000 consumers, they created a smoother, sweeter version of Coca-Cola. They believed they had found the Pepsi killer. On April 23, 1985, they announced the retirement of the original formula and the birth of New Coke. The reaction from the American public was not just negative, it was violent. It was as if the company had burned the American flag. Protesters in Seattle dumped New Coke into the sewers. A man in Arkansas bought $1,000 worth of old Coke to stockpile it in his basement. The company's hotline, 1-800-GET-COKE, was flooded with 1,500 calls a day from people weeping or screaming in anger. One letter to Guazita requested his autograph because the writer claimed the signature of one of the dumbest men in American history would surely be valuable one day. Chapter 14. The Great Pivot, the best mistake ever made. Only 79 days later, the company surrendered. On July 11, 1985, Peter Jennings interrupted General Hospital on ABC to deliver a breaking news bulletin. Coca-Cola Classic was coming back. The stock market soared. People celebrated in the streets. What the executives realized was that they didn't just own a soda company, they were the guardians of an American institution. By trying to take it away, they had forced the public to realize how much they loved it. The New Coke failure became the greatest accidental marketing masterstroke in history. Coca-Cola Classic surged past Pepsi and reclaimed its throne. Chapter 15. The 1990s and the Polar Bear Magic. With the classic brand restored, the 1990s became about cementing the brand's place as a provider of pure joy. In 1993, the company introduced the Always Coca-Cola campaign, which featured the debut of the CGI polar bears. These bears were a technological marvel for the time. They didn't speak, they just shared a Coke under the aurora borealis. The bears tapped into a universal, wordless emotion. They made the brand feel cool again, literally. By the end of the 90s, Coca-Cola was operating in almost every country on Earth, including the newly opened markets of the former Soviet Union and China. The red wave was unstoppable. Chapter 16. The 21st Century. Share a Coke and the Digital Frontier. As the world moved into the digital age, Coca-Cola faced a new challenge: the health-conscious consumer. Sales of sugary sodas began to plateau. The company responded by diversifying, buying brands like Honest Tea, Vitamin Water, and Costa Coffee. But their greatest modern success was the 2011 Share a Coke campaign. By replacing the iconic logo with common first names like Chris, Sarah, and Ashley, they did something impossible for a mass giant. They made a mass-produced product feel personal. People didn't just buy a drink, they searched for their identity on a bottle. It was the first time in history that a brand's name was removed from its own product to increase sales. Chapter 17: The Secret Chemistry of the Fizz. Behind the marketing lies the science. Coca-Cola's success is also a result of the perfect serve. The company dictates that the syrup must be kept at exactly 36 degrees Fahrenheit or 2.22 degrees Celsius to hold maximum carbonation. The straw must be slightly wider than average to allow more of the drink to hit the taste buds at once. Even the McDonald's partnership is a secret weapon. Coke ships its syrup to McDonald's in stainless steel tanks rather than plastic bags to preserve the flavor. Chapter 18: The Shadow of the Giant, Navigating the Dark Side. Every empire has its shadows, and for a company that sells happiness, the late 1990s and early 2000s brought a series of harsh cold showers. As the world became more interconnected, the scrutiny on the Big Red intensified. In India, the company faced a PR nightmare. Local communities accused Coca-Cola bottling plants of draining the groundwater, leaving farmers with dry wells and parched soil. Protests erupted from Kerala to Uttar Pradesh. Simultaneously, accusations surfaced regarding pesticides found in the beverage in the Indian market. While the company fiercely defended its standards, the Teflon image of Coca-Cola began to show its first cracks. They realized that to be a global citizen, they couldn't just take resources, they had to replenish them. This led to the water neutrality goal, a massive, multi-billion-dollar shift in how they managed the Earth's most precious resource. Chapter 20: The War on Sugar and the Health Revolution. The American audience, once loyal to the big gulp lifestyle, began to change. Obesity became a national conversation, and Coca-Cola found itself as public enemy number one in the eyes of many health advocates. The sugar tax started appearing in cities like Berkeley and Philadelphia. But Coca-Cola didn't survive for 130 years by being rigid. They pivoted. They shifted their focus to Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. They didn't just make a diet drink, they used molecular science to replicate the exact mouthfeel of the original 1886 recipe without a single gram of sugar. They stopped marketing to children and started shrinking their cans. The mini can was a psychological masterstroke. It offered the same hit of dopamine at a lower caloric cost, and surprisingly, the company made more profit per ounce on the smaller cans. Chapter 21: The McDonald's Marriage, a Secret in the Pipes. One cannot tell the success story of Coca-Cola in America without discussing its gold standard relationship with McDonald's. It is the most successful partnership in business history. While most restaurants receive their Coke syrup in plastic bags, McDonald's receives theirs in custom stainless steel tanks. The temperature is controlled with surgical precision. The water and CO2 are pre-chilled before entering the fountain. Even the straw at McDonald's is wider than a standard straw, designed so that the carbonation and flavor can hit all your taste buds at once. It is a calculated, engineered experience that ensures a Coke at McDonald's tastes better than anywhere else on Earth. It is a symbiotic relationship where one cannot exist without the other. Chapter 21: The Future, AI, Space, and the Next 100 Years. As we look towards the 2030s, Coca-Cola is no longer just a beverage company. It is a tech and data company. They are using artificial intelligence to create new flavors. In 2023, they launched Coca-Cola Y2000, a flavor co-created with AI to taste like the future. They are experimenting with freestyle machines that track every single pour in real time, telling the Atlanta headquarters exactly what a teenager in a mall in Ohio is craving at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. This data loop allows them to stay 3 steps ahead of the competition. But perhaps the most American part of the story is the brand's resilience. From a brass kettle in 1886 to the International Space Station, where they designed a special space can, Coca-Cola has become the heartbeat of consumerism.